Hey guys and gals, let's talk about Dragon Ball Super, because Dragon Ball Super recently happened and it gave us a big piece of information that is just actually very interesting to even consider and talk about. So let's get right down to it. The idea of the rankings of the universe. In Dragon Ball Super, we find out that the two universes that are fighting, Universe 7 and Universe 9, are both in the bottom rankings of Zeno's general ranking of power scale. So Universe 7 is right above Universe 9 and Universe 9 is dead last. But there's actually a lot more going on in the phrasing of what the Grand Priest is saying. So let's take a closer look at that, because when you consider that and you consider the fact that Universe 7 is one of the two weakest, that doesn't necessarily mean that Goku isn't as strong as, say, Universe 1's strongest non-god fighter. And it's all because of the language that's being used when the priest is explaining what's going on. So let's talk about what we know before we actually get into the full-on analysis. We find out that Universe 1 and Universe 12 and also Universe 5 and Universe 8 are exempt from being destroyed. That is because their average mortal level is at above 7. Whereas Universe 7 has 3.18 and Universe 9 is even worse at 1.86. Okay, so that establishes that we know coming out of this tournament, 4 universes are okay. They can fight and lose and it won't be a big deal. This really is a tournament to determine who will be the 5th universe to survive. Also, as an added bonus, if you look, those universes are the direct counterparts to each other. That will be very important when we start considering Universe 6's place on that list. Now, what's interesting here is actually how this measure was developed. How did Zeno come up with this measure? And the wording that's used, at least according to the subs, is very telling of what's going on. First, let's talk about what statistical measure they're using. As they said by the subs, they said the average level of mortal inhabited stars. Look at the statistic measure that they're using, the average. That is a very misleading statistical measure if you know how to mess with it. Now, if we look at the actual numberings that we were given, Universe 7 is at 3.18 and the highest universes are above 7. What that ultimately tells us is that because of the decimal places, most likely we're getting a weird division happening, and also most likely this is a scale of going from 1 to 10, because then that would make the strongest universes being 7 make sense. But let's talk about what happens when you have an average. Let's take Goku for example. We have him. Let's put him at a solid 7 since he's from Universe 7. And then let's compare him. Let's put in some regular humans from planet Earth. Let's put in Bulma. Let's put in Hercule. Let's put in who else? Who else can we put in? Chi-Chi or something. And then let's look at their numbers, right? Maybe Satan or Hercule, whatever you want to call him, maybe he's at a solid 2. He's a martial artist. Then let's look at Chi-Chi. She's capable of some stuff. Let's put her at a solid 2 and Bulma a solid 1. Right? Then you have these 4. You have them compared to Goku, and when you actually take that average, here's what happens. You ultimately end up with an average of 3. Now let's look at what the Grand Priest said again. He said the average level of the mortal inhabited stars. So this isn't an average of just people. This is an average of an average. The first average being, let's say, planet Earth. They take all the people on that Earth, they take their levels, they get the average, and then they use that average added up with the averages of all the other stars, and then they get the final average, which was 3.18. Now this is really important, and keeping in mind what happened with the previous average of just 4 people, imagine what happens when you put in, let's say, 6 more humans who are at maybe 1. When you do the math, your average has shot down to 1.8. So when you take into account what happens when you have an average and when you happen to increase the sample size, you'll quickly realize that what might be happening here isn't so much that people are weak, it's just that the vast majority of people are weak and it's counterbalancing against the very few who are strong. What it ultimately means is that there are just more strong people in the other universes, and that might simply be because of overpopulation. Let's really quickly take into account Earth. Consider how many people on Earth are at the level of flinging ki blasts everywhere. And then consider the vast majority of the people on Earth, the people who get killed in almost every giant Dragon Ball Z arc and have to be revived by the dragon. Millions of them. So when you have millions of them and it's a 1 to 10 scale, and then you have Goku and the rest who are a handful at that scale, they won't make a dent to the rest of the million. The million will ultimately shape the average that comes out for the Earth planet. If you were to consider the Saiyan planet, however, you could guarantee that that planet would have a higher mortal level than planet Earth because they were specifically a warrior race. The ultimate problem here is overpopulation, and we actually get a hint at that when the Kai and Beerus are talking, because the Kai berates Beerus for being asleep all the time. Because Beerus isn't around to destroy the duds at an active rate. Because Beerus isn't destroying the duds, there are actually more people influencing the overall average. And because of that, you might have a situation where Universe 7 is being brought down to that level. It's an issue of overpopulation. Or it could be an issue of overpopulation if you take the words of the Supreme Kai to be serious and accurate. Now, keeping that in mind, let's also quickly talk about Universe 6. We see that the counterpart system is still working when you have 1 and 12 and 5 and 8. What does that ultimately mean for Universe 6? Most likely, Universe 6 is just slightly above Universe 7. Maybe Champa isn't as lazy as Beerus is. Maybe he doesn't sleep all the time and he actually goes around destroying stuff. He does seem more proactive. And when you consider Universe 9 in relation with the overpopulation theory, Universe 9's god seems relatively lenient. He might not be destroying that many planets, which ultimately causes his score to go down. But it's ultimately a very interesting thing that's going on. Them using the term average really gives us a giant clue at how to determine those rankings, and that's pretty exciting. So guys, let me know what you think down below. Do you think this might actually be how they're approaching the rankings for the various universes? Do you think it might actually be a problem of overpopulation in Universe 7? It could very well be that on average, the people in the other universes just tend to do better. Like maybe everyone in Universe 1 is at least at Krillin level, because then that just helps out when it comes to the average, right? Ultimately guys, let me know what you thought down below, and yeah, let's end it there. Till next time, I hope you have a great day.